Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, and welcome to our virtual Meet the Candidates event here with the two candidates for the fire chief position here in Boise. I'll be joined by Adrian, Sheppard, and Scott Walker here shortly. But for now, I wanted to give you an idea of how this is all going to work. We're going to do 40 minutes with one candidate and then 40 minutes with the other candidate with a short little break in between. I want to thank Lavana Andrew and Sarah McIver for helping us out with the interpretation today. And I want to give you a little idea of how we're going to go about asking questions. We've been asking you in the community to give us questions that you're interested in to get to know the candidates better over the last week. We'll be taking questions over YouTube. You can enter them into the chat window and we'll try to get to as many as possible. We do only have 40 minutes, so we might not get to all of them. And with that being said, let's get to our first candidate, Chief Adrian Sheppard. He comes to us from Richmond, California, where he was the fire chief. He's also a retired Air Force officer. He received a Bachelor's of Science in Professional Aeronautics from Embry-Riddle Aeronautical University. He has a Master's of Science in Leadership and Disaster Preparedness from Grand Canyon University and a Master's of Arts in Security Studies from the Naval Postgraduate School. He's also a graduate of the Naval Postgraduate School Executive Leadership Program and is a certified Chief Fire Officer. I don't have any of those qualifications. Welcome to Boise, Chief.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate that.
Now, I wanted to get started with an easy one. We're going to ask both of you pretty much the same questions, unless there's something really unique to one of you. But first off, what made you want to be a firefighter?
Well, thank you for your question and thank you for the kind introduction of me. Good evening, Boise. So what made me want to be a firefighter? That's, as I said, an interesting question. Growing up, I had absolutely no desire to be in the fire service. I was sharing this recently with some other people. I was in the Air Force. Obviously, that's service to the community, service to our citizens. So I've always been a person who's service-oriented. Shortly after getting off active duty, I was walking down the street in San Francisco and was approached by a gentleman who asked me if I was interested in the fire service. And it was after that exchange with him, after he shared with me what we could do in the community, how my skills, my background, and my experience in the military actually transferred to a service career in the fire department. And so that really was the beginning of piquing my interest in the fire service. And of course, once I've got my first taste of getting out there and serving the community, I was hooked and I haven't looked back ever since.
Give us an idea of how you made it here. Give us an idea of your background and your journey.
So my background and my journey. Back in 1997, I started with the Oakland Fire Department. Very green. Many of the students grew up, students in my class grew up with the understanding that they wanted to be in the fire service. So it was all a new experience to me. But being around people who had the passion to serve really influenced me. And so I really took the job very diligently. I operate with a high level of propriety, I believe. And so I became a student of the profession. I promoted through the ranks. I was a firefighter, then an engineer. After becoming an engineer, I wanted to become a company officer, so I took the training through the state, took the test to be a lieutenant, was successful, worked West Oakland, which was a very challenging and at-need community. Later promoted to captain and really wanted to take on additional responsibilities within the organization. I worked as the training captain and ultimately became the training chief and was given various responsibilities throughout the organization where I was the not only the training chief, but I was the support services chief, I was the communications chief, and I was the fleet manager. So I really had a lot of responsibilities that I believe honed me as a fire service practitioner and actually prepared me for the next step in my progression, and that is as fire chief. So in 2015, I became the fire chief of the city of Richmond, California. And, you never really chief until you're chief and you're occupying that seat. And it was a learning curve. And I really grew into the position. Again, that maturation as a fire chief it's a steep learning curve. And I certainly believe that I've done a good job, but I certainly haven't had hiccups along the way. And so with all that said, I believe in all my training that an officer really arrives to depart. You come in, you implement your programs, you try to make better an organization, but there's a limit to your advance in that you take your program elsewhere. And so I was looking at new places to actually set up my program when the opportunity for Boise came about. And so my knowledge of Boise was knowledge based on maybe 15 years ago when the city wasn't quite the city that it is today. We would come through here several times when we'd go on vacation. And so I looked into it. I looked at really what the city of Boise is doing, how they're managing the city, how the fire service operates. It's an excellent fire service. They've done a great job. And so again, that piqued my interest in wanting to come up here and compete for the position as fire chief.
And that kind of gets us to the question I've heard most from the community as I've been out there. What makes you the best guy for this job?
Sure. That's always an interesting question for me. And the other candidate, Scott Walker, he and I had an opportunity to share a couple of hours with each other today, and he's a fantastic person. I know that already. As the saying goes, I knew him short, but I liked him long. He's a real good guy as well. So rather than say that I am the best candidate, I will tell you what I think exemplifies me as a potential candidate and to be the next fire chief. And it's really my background and my experiences. Scott and I had the opportunity to tour not only the training facility, but the fire stations and meet with some of the people. And as we were touring the training facility, I had to reminisce about my time as the training chief and all the programs I had implemented, making sure that we had a comprehensive annual training plan, making sure that we had compliance with OSHA. So those kind of things really exemplify me. And then going out to the fire stations and looking at our new facilities, again, as the support services chief, I think that having 33 companies in the city of Oakland and then 8 companies in the city of Richmond and having facilities that need maintaining and vehicles that need to be maintained, it really gave me a perspective of how these things are funded, what you cannot do. And I've learned an awful lot, not only the past 5.5 years as fire chief, but throughout my time in the Oakland Fire Department. I think that all my experiences have really exemplified me to helm the Boise Fire Department.
Thanks. And again, get those questions in the chat box if you want to hear more about what the chief wants to do here in Boise. One of those questions comes from Keith. He's curious about a vote of no confidence at your last job.
Sure.
Can you kind of walk us through what happened there?
Sure, absolutely. Thank you for your question, Keith. It's well received. The vote of no confidence, I will never run from that. I can tell you that today, the union president, Luis Padilla, and I have a good, strong working relationship. We've agreed to work very collaboratively with each other. But how do we arrive at a vote of no confidence? Obviously, I believe that the union had legitimate grievances, though I don't believe the grievances necessarily resided with me. I think they were much larger. The issues that we have where I currently work, large budget gaps, the inability to either outfit the fleet with new vehicles or making sure that we had appropriate facilities was often a challenge. But that's not to say that I didn't request new stations or new apparatus and new thermal imaging cameras, so on and so forth. And so the union was very frustrated, and again, I believe legitimately frustrated. But again, I think it was misplaced frustration with the fire chief. But I own up to it and I accept it. And we come through this, I believe, better. I think that as a fire chief, that you need to understand that you're going to have some philosophical differences about how the department should be run. But we need to, as labor and management, continue to work together to see through our differences and understand that we do have shared interest in making sure that our members are safe and that they're outfitted and prepared to do the job. And Union President Padilla and I have agreed to do that. And the way you do it, what we're doing is making sure that we share information. I think that management has a responsibility to extend an olive branch to labor and to allow them to take on some responsibilities to get things accomplished. And a case in point would be our vacation policy. We just met this last week, and it may not seem like a big issue for our listeners, but Keith, I think it's important to know that in the fire service, your vacation pick is a big deal. And the union actually worked for 3 years to come up with a new vacation policy. And so I reached out to the union and said, hey, I'd like to hear what you have. Let's socialize this and let's see if there's any pitfalls. And if I don't have any issues with it, let's move forward. And if I do have issues, let's talk about it. We ironed out a few of the wrinkles. We finished a meeting with an agreement. And I think that that's the way you do it. You do it collaboratively. And you do it with the understanding that we each have the best interests of the membership in mind. So the vote of no confidence, I respect the union. I respect exactly what it is they do. Whether I agree or not with the fact that a vote was taken, I live with that, but you work through it. That's the most important thing, is you have to work through it as a chief officer and lead the organization.
This next question comes from John. He's up on a central bench, and he's curious. The former fire chief was looking to bring Boise into the 21st century with the addition of an electric fire vehicle. The mayor is obviously trying to get the city off carbon and create a clean fleet, a clean city. Is that something you'll be looking at? And how will you help fight climate change with the firefighters?
Well, what a fantastic question. So, yes. Rosenbauer, we looked at the Rosenbauer fire engine ourselves. We were in the organization that I'm with right now. We're currently speccing a new fire station, and with the new fire station, and we wanted to make more certain that we had the type of infrastructure that would support having electric vehicles, not only an electric fire engine, but some of the ancillary equipment as well, our brush rigs. We're right down the road from Tesla, and they'll be coming out with a Tesla truck soon. And we're looking at or exploring the opportunities to have one of those vehicles actually as part of our fleet. It's always a little scary to be the first on the block to actually get a $1 million piece of equipment. But we also understand the great benefits of having it. Less oil, no oil changes, less maintenance, no fuel. Those kind of things really resonate. And in the long run, we think that it will save money. But in addition to that, you don't have exhaust. And, the health and safety of our membership is at the forefront of everything that we do. And anytime we can pull an engine into a firehouse that doesn't have diesel exhaust, I think that's a fantastic venture. So we're really looking at it to make sure that we address the membership's health and safety, and actually that we're good partners with the environment and making sure that we have a clean environment. So I really appreciate that question. It's exactly what I think most fire chiefs will be looking to do. And as I said, not only the infrastructure for the new fire engine and some of our ancillary equipment, but really put the infrastructure in for our employees who in the future will be driving electric vehicles to work, because it's important.
Thanks. Kay from the Foothills is curious about fire coverage. It sounds like in her area, they have one crew. They're a multi-hazard crew that might be working on other things and isn't always kind of available. in her mind. What's your broader strategy about fire coverage? Because I know that you're not intimately familiar with this specific topic, but you might be able to talk about how you go about covering a city.
Sure. Great question. Standard of cover, making sure that we actually are serving our community. What we like to do is do climate surveys and talk to the community and find out what is the service that we're providing to you appropriate? Is it meeting your expectations? And so I know that the Boise Fire Department is doing a standard of coverage study. In my past, in my experience, is that there are a lot of factors we have to look at. And so, and I'll share with you some of the things that we look at. We look at not only response times, which a lot of people will look up and they'll say, well, what's the turnout time? How fast are they getting out of the firehouse and how fast are they getting on scene? But really it's what is the outcome of the response? Are people surviving if we're getting called out for CPR? Are we actually getting on scene in time to actually have more positive outcomes? And then we have to look at a couple of other things. As Boise continues to grow, a couple of things will happen. You'll have, more density, you'll have more traffic, and you'll have different populations coming into the city as it grows. The population might be elderly. So you're going to have a fire station which is in close proximity to an elderly population. You're going to have to look at the freeways and look at the congestion and say, hey, maybe I need an additional firehouse in this location because our response time went from 4 minutes to 8 minutes and we're having negative outcomes as a result. So there's a whole bunch of stuff that goes into a standard of coverage. Again, looking at age, looking at demographics, looking at socioeconomics. Those are all the things we consider as fire chiefs and as practitioners of the fire service when we look at the standards of coverage and making sure that we're meeting your needs. And lastly, I'd like to say that I'll end with what I started. Part of the strategic planning for a fire chief is to bring the community in to hear the very question that you just asked and have you help us develop our strategic plan to make more than certain that we're meeting your very specific needs.
Thanks. So that kind of, it seems like you've done your research on Boise. What was it about Boise that made you want to come here? Why not Spokane? Why not Salt Lake? What brought you specifically to this town?
Sure. And full disclosure, I did not do any study on Spokane or any other city. So I did study Boise, and I shared this recently. It's about what Boise endeavors to be. It's an inclusive city. It welcomes people. I was walking downtown the other day and I looked at a little note that was on the back of a bike that talked about welcome to Boise. And it said to treat everyone with respect, whether or not you're here to stay or if you're just visiting, and enjoy your time in Boise. And that took me by surprise to see that, but it really captured the essence of what I've experienced about Boise. It's progressive in its approach to being inclusive. It's a city that is, it is growing. Not only outward, but upward. Those are all things that interest me, and I want to be a part of something that's really happening positively, and that's happening here in Boise, and that's very attractive to me.
Heather asked a question that kind of dovetails with that. When you're looking at the department, what's your approach to well-being? What's your approach to management and keeping people happy and equitable?
Sure. So when looking at the department and trying to make sure that people's well-being is taken care of, first and foremost, your membership wants to know that they're being heard. And not only that they're being heard, but that you're actually doing something once you've heard them. The membership, labor is very concerned to make sure that people have adequate tools and equipment and resources to make more than certain that not only that they can do their job, but that they can go home and survive. In the fire service, and most people know that it's a very difficult profession, in that unfortunately the hazards associated to the profession result in such things as cancers, rare cancers. Additionally, people break their bodies while doing this job. Injuries are not foreign to firefighters. And so when firefighters either get injured or sick, they want to know that the fire department is there to help them, to guide them through, to either get them healthy and back to the job, or to support them in whatever path they have to go. But I think it is about a mutual respect and understanding for what our membership is going through, and really trying to work with them. I want to meet people where they are. I want to hear what they have to say. I want to know what's bothering them. And if I can provide a resource, I want to get that resource. And I think that if the membership knows that you're doing that, then you'll be okay.
And we've got a couple questions from Hunter and Brian about kind of that balance of how you balance the budget for health and welfare versus maybe the priorities of the department. How do you make those decisions?
Well, I make health and welfare a priority first and foremost. Our membership has to be well and has to have the desire to come to work. So we experience a lot of things in the fire service. We see things that people don't see. We smell things that people don't smell, and it has an effect on our well-being. So that is at the forefront of what we do, and so in that balancing of that, making people's welfare one of my primary concerns is really what sits at the forefront of what we do. And then there are other things as far as, from a budget perspective that there are programs that we want to do. There are things that we'd like to purchase. And those are all good things, and we'll work on those as well. But first and foremost is the health and safety and well-being of our membership.
Aaron from the bench asks, as citizens, we experience the fire chief's leadership primarily through the firefighter responding to emergencies. What would firefighters who currently work for you say about the way you lead?
What would they say about the way I lead? I think that if asked, I think that the membership would say that, I generally try to be approachable. A person said the other day, in fact, it was one of the union members who had said, you always ask about our families whenever you see us. You ask about the kids. And I am genuinely interested in how the membership is doing, how their families are doing. Just as I came up here, and just yesterday, one of our members texted me a photo of his brand new baby. And so we really have that kind of sharing. It goes beyond just the supervisor subordinate relationship, but you should really have to have a desire to get to know your people and to get to know their families and to see how well they're doing or not well. And I think that if asked, that they would say that, yeah, I genuinely want to know how people are doing, and I genuinely care for our membership.
For those of us who aren't firefighters and are lucky enough to not have you show up at our house or anything like that, what's your strategy for engagement of the rest of the citizenry of Boise?
Well, absolutely. The great thing that you have here, which is not too dissimilar to what I experienced in the two previous organizations I've been in, is that you have great community groups. I believe first and foremost that our uniform is our brand. I think that people look at our patch and so they know immediately that it's the Boise Fire Department. Now, if we're doing a good job or bad job, we'll either shine or tarnish our brand. I think as fire chief, I have a responsibility to get out and engage with the community. You have 30 different community groups here. That's not too much different than where I'm at and what I've experienced prior to being where I'm at. I think it's important to share that information with the community members, let them know how we're spending their money, how we're providing services, and really glean from them what it is they want. So you can expect, when I'm fire chief of Boise, that I'll be at the community meetings, that I'll be engaging the public. And when it's not community meetings, when you see me on the street, you should expect for me to engage you. For those of you who can see me, if you can't see me and you're only hearing the audio, in front of me is my cell phone. But inside my cell phone, I have maybe hundreds of phone numbers for citizens. I talk to citizens all the time. I engage with them all the time. And I genuinely become engaged in their lives. We had a citizen who showed up at City Hall during COVID. Most of the buildings were shut down. She wasn't there for a fire issue, but it was my responsibility to engage with her because I was there. And we worked with her on her issue. And, over the last couple of months, I've been to their house. Her husband cooked a meal. Her two kids were there, and we had a meal. I brought my family over. We've celebrated a birthday with them, all while social distancing. And another example is one of our citizens went into congregate care in one of the care facilities in our district. And, not that you expect it from your fire chief, but I made more than certain to bring her a meal every single day while she was in the care facility, Miss Jackie Thompson, and because I genuinely care about our community. And so I do plan to be engaged. I do plan to hear people out and to provide answers to your questions.
Ryan asked, and this is Ryan from the Idaho Press, so he may actually be from Nampa. We're not sure if he's from Boise.
Okay.
You mentioned you're hoping to bring programs from Richmond to Boise. Can you talk a little bit about what those programs are?
Well, we were talked about like community engagement, and I think that's important. I think that that's not particular to me or to any one fire department. I think that's what we do in the fire service. And so I'll continue that level of engagement that you've had. It may be a little bit higher. I don't know. And I say that with respect to the former chief. I'm just a very civic-minded fire chief who really wants to engage with the public. But also, one of the things that I like to do is I look for technologies that really accelerate our response and our service to the community. So look into new technologies that may bring down our cost as far as the service that we provide. And again, that accelerate our response. There's one of the great things that you guys already have here is a pulse point. I think that's a fantastic tool for the community, and we hope that I hope that we're able to expand that to everyone in the community, especially in our the outlying areas of the city where, as an earlier question was broached, as far as not a delayed response but a longer response. When you're using pulse point, and your neighbor may have skills as far as CPR or something like that. And if you have a medical problem, it's good to know that people in your community are qualified. And if the 911 call is made, that they'll be enunciated to the idea that there's a medical emergency within proximity of their location, and can actually come to your house and provide you that service until we arrive. So I think we're stronger as a community, and I think bringing technologies on board that will enhance our ability to serve the public is really what I would love to bring to Boise.
So I've heard this question from a couple of people. How has COVID-19 affected you as a firefighter in your department? And how do you feel like you'll meet those challenges here in Boise?
Oh yeah, COVID has drastically affected how we provide service. From first and foremost, our members, making sure that they remain safe and healthy, making sure that we have PPE for them, personal protective equipment, masks, face shields, gowns, gloves, changing our protocols on how we go on calls and how we're dispatched, making sure that if a person is COVID positive, if they have all the indicators of being positive, maybe they can walk outside. We'd like to meet them outside and where there's more fresh air. It's affected how we budget. We have to put money away now because we have to buy more PPE. And in the organization that I'm in right now, we typically wear wool pants. One of the firefighters had a conversation with me, and he said, I believe that we should be in some wash and wear pants so we can clean ourselves, our uniforms. And so we had to go out, and I totally agreed. And so we went out and we bought new uniforms for our members so they could stay healthy, cleaning their uniforms a couple of times a day, cleaning our apparatus and cleaning our fire stations, how we report up injuries, or illnesses. We've had members in our organization who have either been suspected of COVID or have come down with COVID. And as a precaution, we've had to place them off duty. And I have a responsibility to make sure that not only that member, but whoever they came in contact with, to isolate them from the rest of the workforce, make notification either to the city and to the county, and really do monitoring or medical surveillance on them to make sure that they are healthy or get healthy. And so COVID has been a definite game changer for us. There's no question about it. I don't see it going away anytime soon. But I shared this earlier with somebody. I think that a crisis is a terrible thing to waste. And so the way we do business has changed as a result of COVID. We do, what we're doing right now, video conferencing. So I've had the ability to have a meeting with one group of people, hang up, and I didn't have to drive across town 20 minutes to get to the next meeting. I just logged right back in. So it's made us more efficient in some areas, and it's made us think more nimbly about how we provide services. It has had an effect on our budget, and more importantly, it's affected our membership, and we need to make sure that they stay informed and stay healthy.
A couple of people were asking me, specifically since firefighting is so life and death in a lot of ways, what's the most important decision that you've made in your professional career? And how did you go about making that decision?
The most important decision I've made in my career, in my fire service career, well, geez Louise, I think the decision that I make that's most important really is the one to, as I indicated earlier, is to keep the people at the forefront of everything that I do. So I don't act recklessly as a fire chief. I really process the decision that I'm going to have to make. I socialize it amongst the group. Again, making sure that I keep the individuals at the forefront of my decision-making process. And so I never make a decision because it's popular or maybe unpopular. I don't make decisions based on that. I make decisions based on real information, data, supporting documents that let me know that the workforce is going to benefit from this as a result of the decision that I make. And so, geez, we're often encumbered with so many different decisions to make every single day. But if you understand what your priority is, and that's to keep the membership safe and to keep them employed, then you'll be all right. And so I think that keeping my people's safety and welfare at the forefront has really been the best decisions that I made. And hopefully that answers the question.
I think so. Kind of getting to another big decision that you're making of possibly leaving your current department and coming here. Terry from the bench asks, why do you want to leave your current department?
Well, it's not that I want to leave my department. I truly enjoy the city that I work in. I enjoy the membership that I serve. I enjoy the leadership team throughout the city. And truth be told, I enjoyed the organization I was with before that as well. But as leaders, you do arrive to depart. You implement programs, and you don't want to stagnate. I've been with the city of Richmond for 5.5, almost 6 years, come December 31st. And I think that's time enough. And so part of my growth process, part of their growth process is to make sure that they do get new leadership in at some point that thinks a little bit differently. I'm not always as nimble in the same organization as I am when I'm in a new environment. So that's part of what compels me, is to make sure that I remain fresh and relevant, and find a place where I can implement good programs. And I think that Boise provides me that opportunity. But if the question is about the city that I work with right now, I think that I work in one of the most fantastic cities that there is, and I have some of the most fantastic employees that one can have.
Do you anticipate that being fire chief for the city of Boise will be your last job, or do you anticipate maybe 6 years down the road wanting to go somewhere else?
So that's a good question. I really appreciate that. So, when they sailed the ships to the New World to encourage people to stay, they burned the ships. And so Boise is one of those places where you burn the ship. The balance of my career, and I suspect I probably have 8 more years left in my career. I would like this to be the place that I homestead, not only as someone who works here, but someone who lives here. Boise is not only a great place to work, as many, if not all of our listeners know, Boise is a great place to live. And so I hope to take up residency here and finish out my career and continue to be a member of our community.
What do you consider the best and worst things about being a fire chief?
Ooh, the best and worst things. I think the best thing is probably really the ability to serve. You know, I'm probably a little bit more low key than most chiefs. I'm not necessarily an extrovert or anything like that. But I really like to get out and engage and serve the community. I want to hear what people have to say, and I really want to affect their lives positively. I think the worst thing is, as a fire chief, is it's not only. I think the worst thing is when you don't have the positive outcome and you wish you could have done more. And that's not only to the citizens, but to the members too. Our members get injured. It could be because of a decision that you've made. I always go back and evaluate that decision. But, it's about making decisions, and hopefully I make the right decision. I live with all the decisions that I've made, and I haven't always been right. And so I have to do reflection. I have to evaluate how I approached it. And so some of the, I think maybe the worst thing is when you realize that you've actually made a bad decision, but at the same time, I'm person enough to actually make the correction.
And we're getting close to the end of our time with Chief Shepard. So if you do have any questions specifically for him, get them in quickly. What do you anticipate your first 100 days will look like here in Boise? You've talked about a lot of things that you want to institute, but we're also in the middle of a pandemic. Conceivably, there might even be some budget problems coming out of this because of economic downturn. Realistically, what do you see the first 100 days looking like?
Absolutely. So I firmly believe, because I'm already a fire chief, I've learned my lesson. I firmly believe that first and foremost, don't oversell what the first 100 days will be. Again, I've learned my lesson as a new chief. I think that the first 100 days will include a lot of research and discovery within the department and within the city. I want to take that time to meet and greet every member of the department, the command team, the administrative staff, but also people outside the department, the other staff in the city, and then the community as well. Also in that research and discovery, you want to really start doing a lot of review. I have to look at MOUs. I have to look at contracts. I have to look at budgets, and not only look at them, but understand them. So I can actually have an informed position as far as any conversation that I may have. And that's going to take some time. And only after doing all that review will I really start to be able to operationalize, know my command staff, know what the hot topics are inside the organization. As you indicate, there may be some budget issues. This is an opportunity for me to engage with labor, find out what their concerns are, let them know that we may have some budget issues, and find out where they are with things. So there won't be too much operationalizing of much, but research and discovery within the first 100 days is certainly on the menu for me.
And how do you make those financial decisions? Is there a set of principles that you bring to those decisions, or can you walk me through some of the ways that you have done budget cuts or found fiscal savings?
Sure. So no chief ever has enough resources, and no chief ever wants to go through budget cuts. And certainly it's not done in a vacuum. The fire department budget is only one small piece of the total pie of the city budget. But we have to look into the organization and see if there is opportunity for us to realize some savings. You know, and in my past, I've had to defer the purchase of fire apparatus as a result, you know, looking at the fleet and, you know, we typically have a service life of 10 to 15 years on a frontline piece of equipment, but we may have to stretch that out, you know, 2 or 3 years if we're in a difficult budget cycle. Additionally, we have to look at some cost recovery type of mechanisms. That's something that should be entertained. Again, that's something that, you know, that we can talk about at a later time. But cost recovery for people who don't pay taxes in the city is certainly something that should be discussed, because we are using taxpayer monies when we're going out and responding. So those are things that that I've done in my past. You know, you don't do them happily, you do them because it's necessary. But all of my decisions when it comes to budget and fiscal responsibility have really been guided by making more than certain that that we're being responsible with the money and that we're able to continue as a fire service, and that you know, really to make sure that all members keep their jobs. No fire chief ever wants a member to lose their job. And so we really have to be fiscally responsible and look for very agile ways to get through a budget cycle.
And thanks so much for taking everyone's questions. But before I let you go, I wanted to give you a chance to communicate what you think is the most important thing that Boise residents know about you.
Sure. Well, before we go, I guess I want to thank you for your kind facilitation of this meeting. I do appreciate that. And I do appreciate the residents of Boise for your important questions and wanting to get to know who it is I am. I always share with people, and I'll do it right now. And this is who you can expect if I am your fire chief to me to be. But my phone number is 510-458-0641. I'm always available. I answer the phone 24/7. I answer questions. I've already received a phone call from a Boise citizen, and so I'm already addressing concerns from the public. But that's who it is I am as a person. I believe that my responsibility is to serve you. And so I want to hear what it is you have to say. I want to hear what it is you expect from not only me as your fire chief, but from your fire department. I already know that we do a great job as a Boise Fire Department. I've had the opportunity to watch some of our responders already. Yeah, engage with me, call me, ask me questions. I'll be no different after being placed in the position of fire chief as I am today with you. I believe that I'm an open book, so nothing's off the table as far as asking me questions, and I genuinely feel that I'm here to serve you, the citizens of Boise. So, thank you for entertaining me this evening. I do appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Chief Shepard. And we're going to take a quick break to give you a chance to put some more questions into the chat box and also to get Chief Walker in here. So we'll see you in just a second. we going through or are we not? Hello, and welcome back to our virtual Meet the Candidates forum here at Boise City Hall. I'm joined by Chief Scott Walker now, and I just want to give you a little update that you can still get in that chat box. You can still get your questions in for the chief, and we'll be taking them all the way up to the end of the program. Chief Walker has over 26 years of experience with the Phoenix Fire Department and currently serves as their assistant chief. Chief Walker holds a bachelor's degree in public safety and emergency management from Grand Canyon University and an associate degree in fire service, and has completed the executive leadership program at the Naval Postgraduate School. Both of you have much more impressive resumes than mine. I'll be asking a lot of the same questions to Chief Walker as we did to Chief Shepard. So we'll get to have a good idea of where they stand on a lot of these things. So first off, what made you want to be a firefighter?
Well, good evening, and thank you for the opportunity to be here and have this discussion with you and the community. So, you know, I've been a firefighter for almost 27 years, and really the first time I rode on a fire truck, I knew right then that I want to be a firefighter. Going out, serving the community, the excitement of it, helping people as we do as firefighters, the variety of the career that every day is a new challenge and an exciting new thing really sold me. And I can tell you since that ride along about 27 years ago, I've never regretted the decision. I look back and I've been fortunate to have an amazing career that I look forward to going to work every day, and certainly know why other people want to get in the field of firefighting. It is a great career to have.
Tell us a little bit about how you got from that first ride on the firefighter or on the fire truck to where you are today.
So as I said, it's been an exciting career. My brother, I got on a fire truck right along because my brother wanted to be a firefighter. I actually wanted to be a police officer at that time. And I immediately knew firefighting was what I wanted to do when I rode along. So I committed myself to really working hard to become a firefighter. As many people know, the process is challenging to become a firefighter. It's very competitive. Committed myself to that process and was fortunate to be hired by the Phoenix Fire Department, where I've been for the last almost 27 years. And that career, as I said, has been exciting and diverse. I worked myself up from a firefighter, being hired in 1993, going through the Firefighting Academy, and worked my way up through every rank within our organization, up to my current role of Executive Assistant Fire Chief. And along the way have served in many different roles in the department, certainly working on fire trucks, responding on thousands of emergencies, and serving my community, much like the community of Boise, within the opportunities to be a recruit training officer, public information officer. Being the face of the fire department was a fun and new experience for me. And then as I moved into that command staff role, you know, middle management role, executive role, started to manage and lead the fire department, and really have managed almost all parts of the fire service, operations, fleet, fire prevention, our own IT section within the fire department in Phoenix, our alarm room, our dispatch center, our Homeland Defense Bureau, which is a combination of police and fire working together collaboratively to protect our community. So I've had a really diverse career, as I said. In addition to that, I'm part of our incident management team going out and responding to manage not fires like you're used to up here in Boise, but the logistical areas to support the firefights that are happening. Also on our urban search and rescue team, one of FEMA's 28 task forces here in the country, responding to emergencies when they happen. More recently, down in the Gulf area with all the hurricanes and responding to those communities when they need help. So that's just a brief overview of kind of my career, and it's what's led me here today.
So what makes you the best person for this job?
Well, I do believe that certainly, both of us are highly qualified candidates. And so I will just talk about me as far as that goes. I believe that my 27 years with the Phoenix Fire Department, it is one of the largest all hazards departments in the country. I believe that brings me a level of experience that most don't have. Within that, as I said, I've done many roles and managed all aspects of a fire department. And the scale of Phoenix is significant. And Phoenix is much like Boise in the sense that Phoenix is the capital and really the big fire department in Arizona. Boise Fire is the capital and the big fire department here in Idaho. So we are leaders in the region. And so I think there's a lot of similarities. Also, my understanding from my research is that the past Boise leaders have looked at Phoenix for ideas and they've structured many of the things in the department based on those things. I can tell you I saw a sense of really familiarity when I first looked at the Boise Fire Department, and now I know why. And so I think my experience with that, my experience working in a very, collaborative labor management relationship, my experience working within a large municipal government and understanding the nuances of, yes, we're a fire department. Yes, I'm a fire chief, but I'm also a department head helping the mayor in this situation, in this city, to lead the city and help being part of our executive team. I think my experiences doing that really add value to me, and managing, one of my responsibilities is managing the fire department budget in Phoenix. I'm proud of the work I do there. I manage a $365 million budget for the Phoenix Fire Department and have been very effective in doing that. I think that experience will add value to me as the fire chief here as well.
Now, why Boise? Why not Spokane or Salt Lake or staying in Phoenix and trying to become the fire chief there?
So I can tell you that for me, I don't just want to be a fire chief. I want to be a fire chief in a fire department in a city where I can have an impact. And so when I became familiar with the Boise Fire Chief job opening, I was contacted by the consultant doing the recruitment, and they sent me the brochure. And I'll say, and hopefully this doesn't sound arrogant, but as I looked at the ideal candidate qualities that were listed, there were 8. I do believe that I possess those qualities. Again, the experiences I have has allowed me to have those qualities. And so when I saw that, I really felt like the job was calling me. And so as I continued to look at the job, looked at the challenges and opportunities that were listed in the same brochure, and I really saw opportunities. The new mayor and new police chief is exciting as the new fire chief would come in and really work to move forward the departments in the city, things like that, continue to reinforce that this is a good place for me where I can add that value. And then as I researched the city of Boise itself, so I can tell you everything I have seen has been, this is an amazing city. Much like Phoenix, it's a growing city, so I understand those challenges and have tackled those in Phoenix as well. And so once it became public, my name, everybody, I can tell you, and your community should be proud, is everybody that has contacted me has only said good things about Boise. I've had not one negative comment about the city of Boise in general or as anything specific. So the doors just kept remaining open as I continued to explore this opportunity. And because of that, I believe that I can add that value here. And that's really why I'm here today. I don't go out and apply for fire chief jobs just as a matter of fact, because it really is got to be the right fit for me with that particular city and that fire department where I feel I could add that value. And that's really what I want to do.
You mentioned earlier that there were those 8 properties that a chief had to have. What do you think those are for yourself? What do you think the most important things that a police chief needs to bring to the board are? And tell me why you have them.
So I think the most important thing is, as the fire chief, I fully understand that the fire department exists to serve your community. We need to make sure as the fire chief and the department that we're engaged in your community, that we're listening to the community, that we know what the expectations are of the community so that we can meet and really preferably exceed those expectations. Those expectations change. What we do today in the fire service is not what we did 20, 30 years ago. Certainly not what we'll do in another 10 or 15 years. Really do believe we're on the cusp of a change in the fire service. The fire department is really the last person or entity that makes house calls in a sense, right? We're a 24-hour service. We're a decentralized workforce, and we're a large workforce. So when things need to be done, we go do them. And so we have a piece of helping the cities move forward. And so I'm sorry, can you repeat the question again? Just, I got a little bit lost.
Yeah, no, you were saying that you possess the 8 properties that were being looked for in a police or in a fire chief here in Boise. Not necessarily those 8, but what do you think those properties are and why do you have them?
Yeah, so that was kind of the outline of how I see the role. So for me, I describe myself as a modern fire chief, and I really make that distinction because fire service is certainly steeped in traditions. And I'm proud to be a firefighter and the traditions that come with it. But as I said, we're also on that cusp of moving forward, and so we're looking at how do we address the changing society, the needs of society. The fire department will have a piece of that. I understand that. I can navigate those waters. I believe I have the ability to embrace and engage with the community and listen to the community. I believe that I am innovative and really willing to push the status quo. I tell my people all the time, we're going to continue to look at how other places do things. We either going to validate how we do it's correct, or we're going to find a better way of doing it. And so I will always want to continue to push the limits, to push to be better, to make sure we're meeting the needs of the community, that we're consistent with the mayor's vision and the expectations of the community. And so those are the type of skills I have. I also, am innovative in a sense of embracing technology. So technology is here. It's a part of our life and almost everything, or probably everything we do. And certainly the fire service, that's no different. And so, the fire service, we jokingly say that the 2 things we hate are change and for things that stay the same. And so sometimes we have to, as a fire chief, help usher us into that new future. And so I believe I have those qualities. I'm a very engaged leader and really believe in providing the clarity, the competency to our folks, and the empowerment of our folks. And because at the end of the day, it's firefighters that are out there at 2 a.m. serving the community that really make the difference. No matter what I say or do here tonight or at any time, the firefighters are the one that really impact the community. And I want them to know what that job is and what they, 2 a.m, what the right decision is and how to serve the community. So creating an environment where our folks have those things, they're going to go out and do good work. They're going to reach their greatness and really reach improbable heights is really my expectation, my leadership style for my folks. And that'll start from me as the top and building that culture within my command staff and down in through the entire department. So that to me is my leadership style and how I would move the department forward.
You said firefighters hate when it changes or stays the same. John from the bench kind of has a question that hits on a little bit of that. He's wondering, the former fire chief was looking to bring in an electric fire truck into the fleet, kind of going on the mayor's priority of combating climate change and becoming 100% clean energy in the city. Is that something that you would look at? And how would you kind of help combat climate change as a fire chief?
So certainly I'm aware that's one of the, the mayor's strategic vision, one of the strategic goals. Her and I just talked about that earlier today. And so I've been on the electric fire truck that was produced in Europe that's here in America. And I am a strong proponent of that. I think it'd be exciting to be leading that, that movement, that change within fire service. The reality is, I think we'll see electric fire trucks and, within the next few years, 4, 5, 6, 8 years, it has become more standard. Again, firefighters resist change a little bit. That truck, I believe, meets our needs. I believe it's consistent with where our society is and where our needs are to impact climate change in a positive way and reduce our footprint. And so not just in fire trucks, but also for the fire department, looking at our fleet. There's no reason we can't move to, electric vehicles or alternative fuel vehicles for the fleet as well. So yes, I would certainly embrace that. Again, I'm innovative and embrace the technology. And I'm excited about that opportunity to look at that. I would love for Boise Fire Department to be one of the first few departments in the country to have the electric fire truck.
And again, that we're in odd times. Kristen asks, are you going to be above partisan politics? Are your priorities going to be the Boise firefighters and the rest of the community and not politics?
So 100%, particularly at a local level or state level, I am apolitical, right? So I work for the mayor and the council, and my job is to ensure we are providing the best service to this community. My job is to make sure that I'm providing the information of what our needs are, providing the solutions for those needs, make sure I give solutions and really the impacts of doing something or not doing something. So I'd appreciate, politics, and there's certainly a broad spectrum of people's political views. That is not my place. That is never has been my place in Phoenix. It's certainly been my place here because, again, my job is to serve this community by making sure the fire department is prepared to go out and provide the best service to your community.
Do politics slide into firefighting?
Well, we try in the firefighting world, the two things we try to keep out of the fire station, and one of the two is politics, because we all have our opinions on things, and we certainly appreciate and respect everybody's opinion. But living with firefighters, it can cause a wedge, and we don't want that. So we need to work together to serve the community and not bring those things in. And so as the fire chief, certainly I'm impacted in the sense by politics or budgets or these types of things, but that I need to make sure that I'm not weighing in, right? I need to be focused on the city of Boise, the Boise Fire Department, our community, our residents, and serving all residents in all neighborhoods across the city, regardless of politics.
And kind of on that same idea, Heather was wanting to know, what is your approach to the department's well-being as a whole? What will you be bringing to the table in regards to kind of the well-being of the firefighters?
So my values and part of my value decision-making model are really about providing the best customer service to our community. I certainly have said that many times. Number two is providing for the safety and wellness of firefighters. And number three, being fiscally responsible. So those are the values that I'm going to gauge my decisions on. And so certainly in today's world, firefighting is more dangerous than it ever has been. Materials are burning hotter and faster than ever, and lightweight materials are posing more of a risk to firefighters just in general of fighting fires. The materials that are burning are now are producing more carcinogens than ever before. We know firefighters are at a higher rate of being diagnosed with cancer currently than our general public. And so those are real issues that we are now taking very serious in the fire service. Boise is already doing many good things in that. They have 2 sets of turnouts. They're washing their turnouts. They're doing clean cab trucks. So they're on the right track. I will continue those efforts to really work to minimize the exposure to firefighters, to reduce the impact or potential for cancer. The other side is the wellness, right? We're also realizing that the career being a firefighter is having an impact on our mental health more than we ever thought of. Firefighting, what we do, we see many, many ugly things and many bad things, and those things can eventually, accumulate to where they're having issues, with PTSD, with mental health. I know here in Boise in the last year, there was unfortunately a Boise firefighter did commit suicide. We saw the same thing a few years ago in Phoenix. Several firefighters committed suicide, and that was a real wake-up call to us. So yes, I am strongly committed and wholeheartedly committed to making sure that we are doing all we can to protect our members. Already efforts with Connect Boise program, with resiliency programs within the Boise Fire Department and their strategic plan. And I will continue to build on those efforts, make sure our EAP efforts are what they need to be, really, in general for the city, but also for what the exposures firefighters have, mental exposures, physical exposures. So it really, my plan on that is really multifaceted and will continue to evolve as we continue to learn more about the issues and we see how we can better address it. On the mental health piece as well, peer support is something that's really come on strong. Again, Boise Fire is doing that. I'll continue to reinforce and embrace that as well. So I am committed to the safety and wellness of the Boise firefighters.
And you asked or answered a little bit of this, but Hunter was asking if you could give some more specifics on how you will tackle cancer, carcinogens, PTSD, mental health, and those issues.
Well, like I said, it's specifics as far as cancer, the clean cab design, keeping our turnouts out, minimizing exposure, making sure firefighters have the 2 sets of turnouts so they can change out if there are an incident, make sure they were laundering their turnouts, hood exchange. These are really specific things. Exchange our hoods after fires, make sure we're limiting time in the fire, first crew in, first crew out. Make sure we're doing gross decon at the scene, washing off the insulation, the contaminants off the firefighters. And then also one thing that not happening in Boise, which I would like to see, and I think with the way the health insurance works is possible, is an annual cancer screening. So there's potential. We're doing in Phoenix is annually we do a cancer screening where we really do a 3D imaging for using MRI technology for cancers in the body. We also do for males at a certain age prostate follow-up, females breast cancer, and then skin cancer. So it's a holistic, full assessment annually. And then if we spot those things, we can start early treatment. That has had a very positive impact. We have caught and found at least 4 kidney cancers in Phoenix firefighters through this program. So those are just some of the things. And again, this is technology, or this ideas and research is ongoing. So as we continue to learn more about what we can do, we will continue to embrace that. But those are probably the more popular things that are really having an impact right now. And as far as cancer prevention and like I said, wellness, it's really about a peer support. It's about a good, strong EAP program. It's about, compassion and looking for, making it okay for firefighters to share when they're having issues, making sure when we have a high stress call, that call can be identified so we can follow up afterwards, so that, you know, our command staff or our company officers can monitor and track their individuals to really see. We can watch and look for use of sick leave or unusual uses of leave. While not everybody that uses a lot of sick leave necessarily has an issue, maybe a wellness issue or some other type of issue, we know that most people that have issues use a lot of leave. So that's a real trigger we can watch and monitor. And then when we see those things, we need to act. We need to follow up. We need to engage. We need to create a culture where people know it's okay to say something, and our leaders know it's the right thing to do, to engage, and not the right thing to ignore, right? It's human beings, it's sometimes easier. We don't want to cause confrontation, but as leaders, it's the right thing to engage those person and try to save that person. We want to save obviously their life, their health, their career, and put them on the right path and make sure we have the tools there to get them the help they need. And so those are some of the things I would do.
John would like to know what your position on automatic aid with your neighboring departments would be. And for those of us who aren't firefighters, maybe you could explain what automatic aid is.
Sure. So in the fire service, there's mutual aid and automatic aid. Mutual aid is a neighboring department. For instance, I will just use Eagle because it's a close community. If they need help, mutual aid, they have to call and ask. And if we can send resources, we would send it. It's a little bit of a slow process, potentially, when lives are at stake. So that would be a mutual aid. Automatic aid is where because you have a centralized dispatching all your departments using AVL technology to know where all your fire trucks are, we cross jurisdictional boundaries seamlessly. And so that does happen, in my understanding. What I've learned currently is how the units are dispatched. So Eagle trucks come to Boise, Boise go to Eagle, and so on. So again, where I come from, we are one of the largest automatic aid regions in the country. We have 22 fire departments that work seamlessly as one big department, but these are independent departments with their own fire chiefs, their own cities, but we all work collectively and collaboratively to provide the best level of service we can to our region. We do it also when we are fire station planning to make sure we are really using our resources as effectively and efficiently as possible, so that, we don't build two stations within a mile of each other when it makes more sense to build them a little bit. So it's about response, it's about planning and working together. And so I'm a huge proponent of that. I can tell you that for all cities that participate in these type of agreements, it is effectively and efficiently use of your resources. It saves all cities money that do it. So I would definitely continue the process that's in place now and look if there was areas to improve upon it or opportunities there, it would continue to do that. So strong proponent of automatic aid. It is the right thing, especially in your region where your cities have now touched each other. It just makes sense to get the right help to the community when they need the help. Again, it's back to the values of providing the best service to our community.
Earlier, Kay asked the question about response times within her community and how they might be better. But one of the things that she was mentioning is they only have one truck. And sometimes it's brought off to range fires, various other things out of the community. And they feel like their response times maybe are higher because their truck's not in their community. How would you make those response times quicker? What would be your strategy? What's your policy on kind of putting all those assets around?
Sure. So response times really are the metric that the fire service uses to measure ourselves against, because it truly is, we've got to get resources there and then enough time to make a difference, whether it be a fire or medical incident. So that is the metric we measure ourselves against. There's an NFPA standard that says what it should be. And so it's important that we are constantly tracking our response times as a city, but also individual areas of the city, so we know where we're doing well and where we're not doing well. I know the Boise Fire Department, it has a data analyst, and they do track response times. I have seen the reports that they have produced. And so knowing the information is key then for planning. And we need to know based on call volumes, based on those response times, where are our gaps? And then look, and that's how we project out a strategic plan or a forecast for where we need new stations. And then as a fire chief, it's my responsibility to identify those areas and then put together a plan to bring to mayor and council certainly of our needs and explain why we have those needs. And so that's how we will address it from a more permanent solution. As far as a single truck, again, we need to look at call volumes. Is the call volume so high that there's an additional resource that needs to be there? Is it a peak time unit? Is it a full-time unit? What needs to be? There's lots of solutions as we look to be innovative and use our funding wisely of how we can address those needs. if we're moving a truck, and leaving a big gap for a long amount of time, then, potentially is a resource we can move to backfill in there. We should be working to balance, even in an incident, while an incident is occurring, we can look to balance the resources we have in the city and even in automatic aid, even if potentially if we had one in Meridian again, another near community, that we could move over for an hour while those crews are fighting that fire. So we want to make sure that we can respond still timely. Now, yes, in those situations where you're stretching your resources thinner, your response times do go up briefly, but we can make adjustments to try to keep that amount that they go up, to mitigate that and keep them as low as possible. So it's really twofold. Again, planning, long range planning, understanding where the cities are, or the city's growing, knowing where we can get to in the NFPA response time standard and where we need to plan for resources. And then also currently on an incident like she described is how do we adjust our resources real time.
Aaron asked earlier about leadership styles. Most people in the community are only going to see you at the worst times in their lives, probably, but the firefighters will see you every day. What's your leadership style like in the fire department, and then what's it like within the community?
So I hope you'll see me more than just when things are bad. So I do plan on being an engaged, fire chief and a leader within the city, and being at council meetings. So if you see me come and say hi, and being out and being involved in activities that go on or events that go on. One of the things additionally about coming to Boise is that I can see there's a real sense of community and connection with the fire department. I see stories on the news, and the realities in Phoenix, our stuff doesn't make the news because it's just so big. So that is a sense of something I want to be a part of. So I want to be engaged. So I hope you will see me more often. But as far as my leadership style, specifically as a fire chief and with the firefighters and the fire department, I describe myself as a transformational leader. And what I mean by that is I'm very passionate about leadership, refining myself, always making myself a better leader. And so what I mean by that is it's much like servant leadership, which many people are familiar with the added piece of providing that, that objective, that vision. With firefighters will do anything you need them to do. They'll get the job done. Sometimes we just need that direction or goal to get to, and that helps with firefighters. So I really break it down into three pieces. It's providing the clarity of where we're going, why we're doing it, why it's important. And that's shared through my expectations, certainly with the members of the fire department. And then providing them the competency, meaning I'm going to make sure they have the tools, the training, the support, everything they need to do that job and do it well. And then the empowerment to go out and do that job. And so they're going to know how to make a good decision. They're going to know what the right thing is. So at 2 a.m. when they're out there, I don't have to be standing there telling them this is the right thing to do. They're going to know what the right thing to serve that resident or that community member at that time is, whatever that might be, whatever the issue might be. So it's that three pieces of that triangle is how I describe my leadership style. And I find this to work very well. I'm very collaborative, with everybody, very engaged. I communicate, off regular and often is what I tell people. And so, this is the style that I have really refined over the last several years and has worked well, for me in the fire service.
It seems like you've done a lot of work to really refine that leadership style in Phoenix. Why do you want to leave?
So, for me, I want to be a fire chief in a community and for a fire department where I can have that impact. And so I believe everything has lined up within the city of Boise and the Boise Fire Department. This is the opportunity here. And so that's why I basically, applied and in this process. And so if this is where it's, where it works out, I'll be thrilled. I think I can add that value. I think I can have that impact. And so, that's just the reality of that. There are very few places that everything lines up with me and my style, and, with the department where it has to be that right fit. It has to be a fit for me. It has to be a fit certainly for the city of Boise and for the Boise Fire Department. And so I believe the fit is there, and now is the time for me.
How important is training, and what's your experience with training, and what's your strategy for going about training your firefighters?
So in the fire service, really training, there's nothing more important than training, right? We have to make sure we're providing the tools and the training, again, in that competency part of my leadership triangle to make sure they can do their job. But in the fire service, it's also about making sure we're keeping those firefighters safe, right? They have to know how they do their job. They have to know how to make good decisions. They need to know what those decisions are. And so we need to be committed to training. And as we continue to expand the role of the fire service and the fire department, that puts pressure on us to continue to expand our training, but we have to do that. and we have to figure out how we best apply training. But with the world we live in with technology, we're sitting here on a Zoom meeting right now. And so this has added a new level of us to include virtual training or recorded training. So we can have firefighters in the station, do part of their training virtually, and get signed off on that in a sense, and then go do the practical skills. So training is something that we need to always be committed to as a fire department because of the risk to our firefighters, because we need to continue to refine our skills to serve the community best. And so, but looking at it and doing it differently, I think is important. I think we can't just say we're going to do it the same way we always have. So I'm committed to training and can assure you that.
Quite a few people have asked me about how COVID-19 is affecting firefighting. How has it affected your department in Phoenix, and what lessons have you learned that you can bring to Boise?
So I will say, on the Boise Fire Department and the City of Boise, they took actions early. I know the mayor created a task force, which the fire department was a part of. And so they've done many good things here. And the fire service, we communicate a lot. So we learn from each other as we went through this. Like all of us, we were learning as we were going. And so where we're at today, is for the Phoenix Fire Department, we've done a good job of protecting our members, and I think the fire service in general has done a good job of providing the PPE, providing the messaging, making sure people aren't coming to work sick and doing those types of things. And for us, I'll be honest with you, most of our members have contacted COVID-19 have actually, it appears, have done it off duty. We really can't find a link where there was an on-duty call. But that makes sense because our crews are wearing the right gear, they're taking the right precautions, they're doing the right thing at the station, they're cleaning, they're doing all those things. But off duty, right, they may be laxing a little bit. So, but with that, we've done a good job of, when we see a trend, we track it daily. When we see any kind of trends, a couple of times we've had some stations where we had several members in just a short period all of a sudden test positive. Even though it's probably off duty, we put those members off so we could kind of reset. We tested all those members, and until they became negative or showed negative, we didn't bring them back. At the same time, we did a very thorough professional cleaning of the fire station. So that's something we can do. I know here at Boise Fire, when they have members that get in contact with somebody, they are sending members home for the quarantine. So they're doing the right things here in Boise. I think is the fire chief, and certainly we're at the point now where, what the next few months, we don't know what it's going to hold. There's a potential second wave. We're concerned about the flu. We're concerned about the winter. And regardless of where people might think what is going to happen as a fire chief, it's my job to make sure that the firefighters are able to staff fire trucks. So we've got to continue with our measures to keep them safe, continue to make sure they have the PPE, continue to make sure that they are not coming to work when they're sick. Continue to reinforce the messaging. Hey, keep your exposures limited off duty. Wear your mask. Wear your mask in the station. We've got to keep those folks safe and healthy so that they can staff fire trucks, so they can go out and respond to the community no matter what happens. If we see a significant increase or not, that's my job to ensure that we can staff fire trucks to serve the community.
And we're getting towards the end of our virtual Meet the Candidates event here, but we still got a little bit of time for you to get your questions in there if you've got anything that you want to know from Chief Walker here. What's the most important decision that you've made as a firefighter in your firefighting career, and how did you make it?
That's an interesting question. It's a good question, but interesting. Certainly, the reality is when working on fire trucks and as a company officer, you make life and death decisions. I mean, that is part of the nature of the fire department, the fire service. You make decisions of putting people in harm's way or not putting people in harm's way. There are incidents that I can recall where, truly, as the company officer responsible for 3 other lives, and you make the choice to go into a building that is high risk, that there is a potential you're not coming out of. And not to over dramatize, but that is the reality. So there's 2 different scenarios I can think in my career where specifically my focus, we went into the building, but my focus was make sure my members, stayed with me, stayed on the hose, and we came out. Whole time thinking one mistake and someone may not come out. So those are real life, those are big decisions as a company officer you make it again, based on your values, based on a risk assessment. Is the risk worth, is the outcome worth the risk? So as a firefighter, we look at, is there potentially lives at risk, lives that could be saved? We're willing to risk our lives a lot in those situations. And that's really how we make that decision. So, I mean, those are probably the biggest decisions anybody in the fire service ever makes is, do I risk myself or my members' lives to go in to save somebody else? And I've certainly have made those decisions, but you make it calculated in a way, and certainly not careless or frivolous. Other decision now as I've moved into executive, and now you're making decisions that impact, potentially the fire department as a whole or the city, enforcing the fire code, those types of things where, you potentially are impacting lives. You don't always see it, but, you have to make those hard decisions when there may be a lot of pressure to do something, but we're going to, do the right thing because it is the right thing. And we know that it does protect our residents and protect our community. So again, I'm always going back to those value decision-making process and thinking about the risk reward. And that's how I make my decisions.
And how do you apply those values to fiscal related things? Because let's all knock on wood and hope that we don't have a recession coming up, but there's been some bad economic news and there's a possibility that you might have to cut budgets. And with all these things being life and death decisions, how do you go in and create efficiencies, streamline the budget? How do you make those decisions?
Very systematically is how I would say we do that. So, when we should be forward looking and thinking about that ahead of time. I know there's conversations now, so we need to be looking at our budgets and looking at where can we save money. And it's usually shaving here, shaving there. And as a last resort, do we get into, lowering staffing levels or putting a fire truck out of service? The reality is we have to keep fire trucks in service. Other things can potentially be impacted, and service delivery can be lessened for a brief period of time, but we need to be responsible and do it really systematically and prioritize our needs and prioritize the needs of the community. And so that is really the process. So where I come from now, this is something we actually do every year as a planning process. We look if we have to cut out 3 to 5%. So we already make that plan ahead. So then in fact, if it does come, we're ready for that. But it really is just a systematic process of where is the least impact to service delivery to our community, and what is the briefest amount of time that impact may be. And that's how we'll make those decisions. There'll be, again, strong collaborative decisions. There'll be conversations about what the impact of each of those cuts, because it's incremental. This may equal 1%, this is 2%, this is 3%. Well, what does 1% mean? What does it mean to service delivery? What does it mean to our community? What does 2% mean? And so we'll make those decisions fully informed, fully aware, and we'll do it in that fashion that we are going to minimize with each level, minimize the impact.
Do you anticipate that this will be your last job, or do you think 5-10 years down the road, you'll be wanting to move somewhere else?
No, I would anticipate this would be my last job. Yep. So I believe 100% that I can be the Boise Fire Chief and provide that service or that impact as I've talked about. I'm not looking to move anywhere else. Driving around and learning all more about Boise. This is certainly a community that I could become part of. This is an amazing community. Nobody's ever said anything negative to me about it. I'm an outdoors person, so being out, this is the outdoor capital of the world, I would say, or one of them certainly. So it fits with me personally, and it fits with me within the fire department as well. So I am not looking to leave or go anywhere else if I were to become the fire chief here.
And thank you so much for all the questions that you guys have gotten in. We're going to try to get to a couple real quick at the end since we're about running out of time. But Bill from Southwest Boise asks, 4-person engines can be very costly. How do you balance that with the other city needs?
So 4-person staffing certainly is a cost. I do believe that 4-person staffing, when we look at it, when you look at whether it be NFPA or the UL studies, or we look at American Heart, or we look at these different areas, there is data and there is objective ways of saying that it is better service to our community to have 4-person staffing, to really have the impact we want to have. It's certainly safer for our firefighters. So I do believe it is a goal we should strive for. But the reality is there is a cost to it. And I certainly appreciate that. And there are plenty of other needs in the city and other city departments that have needs. And so that's where we have to balance the needs. That's where we have to understand that not going to happen overnight. But if we agree that it is the right thing to do, then we build a plan to how we can get there. Maybe it takes several years to get there. And then we also understand is looking to leverage other opportunities for revenue that are outside of the city's budget, that with grants and at the federal level, there's a lot of funding that available can help support that plan that wouldn't have an impact on another city department. And so again, had this conversation with the mayor earlier as well, is that, this is something that I am very familiar with, seeking out revenue sources outside the normal streams. And so that we can get those things that we need without impacting the general fund or impacting other departments. And so while a fire chief, I'm a department head, and I certainly have to understand the city as a whole and the city's needs as a whole. And so I will represent the needs of the fire department and certainly as in the priority, the impact of those needs, but at the same time, be understanding of the rest of the city. And we'll work to balance that out with the mayor and with the other city department heads.
And thank you so much again for all the questions. And this one might have to be the last because we actually have to get you back to your bed because it's been a long day. What are your first 100 days in office going to look like if you become the next fire chief?
So for me, I built a 1-year transition plan, and it's really first and foremost is I want to introduce myself to my key stakeholders, the Boise Fire Department members, certainly the city leadership, mayor and council, department heads, our community. I want to work, identify and connect with the regional partners, not just the fire departments that we serve, the fire districts, but also the regional fire departments in Meridian and Eagle and Napa and the other departments. So I want to start building that relationship with those individuals. But our priority will be the first 30 to 60 days is really looking at the department and identifying any service delivery gaps or we might have, so I can know the risks, so that I can know the risks of the community. I want to engage my command team and understand the capabilities of my command team. There are some vacancies on the command staff at this time that need to be filled. Second to the fire chief vacancy, other vacancies in the command staff, it's good to get those filled. The department needs to know, the members need to know where we're going as a department. So my effort will be focused on filling those. It's going to be about, as I said, assessing the department as a whole. So people are familiar with the SWOT analysis. There's also a SOAR analysis of strengths, opportunities, aspirations, and results analysis. Because I think you have a good department that will find opportunities, but not probably necessarily a lot of gaps to fill, but certainly opportunities. We'll identify those. We'll work collaboratively, build plans to address those, and then we'll implement those plans in a timely fashion. Change management takes time, but it's really going to be about understanding this, learning the city's processes, learning the city, learning this community, engaging with the community, understand the fire department, making sure the fire department is on a path where it needs to be to meet the needs of the community. And so that's really my focus. So once I get in and see those things, then that will help drive the second 6 months. And then they'll be, really continuing that work I've already started and the foundation I built, but putting those plans in place to address the things that we want to address or move us in the direction where we need to go.
And if you could give me a real short answer, because we are almost out of time. What's the one thing that you hope that people of Boise know about you? You got a lot of the questions of what they wanted to know, but what do you hope they know?
So I hope, like I said, I hope you know that I'm a person that truly is committed to providing the best service to our community. One of the things I'm most proud of, for 27 years, I've come to work every day to serve my community in the city of Phoenix. I would continue that here. I would come to work every day to make sure that myself and the Boise Fire Department and firefighters are serving this community well. We're meeting your expectations, preferably exceeding your expectations, but we're going to do that, and we'll continue to listen to you. We'll continue to be engaged with the community. I want people to see a Boise fire truck or see a Boise firefighter and kids, run up to them and talk to them. I want that type of an image. I want, when you see a Boise fire truck driving down the street, I want you to be proud of your fire department. So that's the culture that I will work to build. And like I said, I am committed to doing that. I have been for 27 years and will continue to be.
Well, thank you so much, Chief Walker. And I'd like to thank Chief Shepard again. And I'd like to thank all of you out there. And a big thanks to Sierra McKeever and LaVonna Andrew for helping us out with the interpretation today. I hope you all have a great night. And thanks for joining us and meeting these two wonderful people.